What's up, everybody? Welcome to our collaboration episode with Real You and Blue Collar Future. This is the fourth installment and the last one for this series. We're going over mind, body, money, and people. So we are on people, meaning relationships. And so, yeah, we're going to talk about those, why they're important, how to maintain them, how to, I don't know, which ones to cultivate, which ones to throw in the trash, kind of everything. We'll see where it goes. But, yeah, so for relationships, I don't even know.
People suck.
People
People suck. That should be the title of this episode.
Thanks for listening. But yeah, what would you guys say is the most important relationship you have in your life?
For me, it's my spouse.
Me too. Likewise.
Yeah. Well, I'm not married, but I would say my spouse. But probably my girlfriend, and then, my parents and then siblings.
That's a close second for me. I mean,
Yeah.
you guys know I'm pretty close with my family, at least.
Yeah.
See them a lot, so.
Family.
And to me, like, money don't matter. All this stuff doesn't matter. I could lose everything as long as I have the people with me. Like, that's what's important. A place, a vacation is only as good as the people I go with. A podcast is only as fun as the people I do it with.
Yeah.
A business is only as good as the quality of customers I have and the business partners and, the collaborations that we do. So relationships is kind of what life's all about, to me at least. What do you guys think?
Yeah, definitely. I think relationships is a huge thing. And like I kind of said in one of the previous episodes, like, we're also skill and money and career focused, and you don't really learn how to be in a relationship with friends, with your spouse, with, you don't go to school to learn how to be married. I'm sure if you had to get certified to be married, there wouldn't be as many people getting married and divorced like within a year or whatever, because there's a lot of people that do that. And cause it sounds ridiculous even saying that because it's a natural thing for humans, but people are so selfish and it's so hard to see outside of your own mind and try to like see into somebody else's and connect with them and not like step on each other's toes and communicate in a way that's productive.
Yeah. I really believe there's no self-made anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because like I even look at my marriage, my relationships, my business, my, things that I consider a success. I didn't do any of them by myself. None of them. Even before I had employees, I still had, family support and friendships like this and my wife. And, there was still so many relationships influencing me in growing and progressing and getting better. So, some people are like, oh, wow, you own 100% of your business and da-da-da-da. I'm like, yeah, it looks that way, but I'm not self-made nothing, at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I made a post the other day about how I didn't really care to meet new people when I was growing up. And it's like one of those things where, you would see like human connection is so important. But as a kid, I was like, I don't care. Like, what am I going to gain from meeting you or whatever? Like, especially while I was in high school and stuff. It's like, I didn't care. I didn't really care to go hang out with friends a bunch. I didn't like do any of that stuff. So when I started like actively pursuing relationships with people, it was a crazy difference. Like actively pursue meeting people, making connections and all that. Cause I just didn't really care. And I didn't really see the importance behind it the way that we see this networking thing as.
When did you change that?
It was probably, when I started actively doing that, I bet it was because of joining the Lion's Den or joining like
some groups and
doing some of that stuff. It's like I would hang out with friends, coworkers, and you'd see people on the jobs and meet other contractors, that type. But I didn't like go out of my way to pursue it until probably a coaching group.
What about you, Skylar? I feel like in your previous business, you probably focused a lot on relationships.
Yeah. So when it came to the relationships with clients, I would spend as much time as made sense with the clients afterwards or even before, or I go meet them and ask them, if they have a cool car parked in the driveway, I'll ask them about that. Or or even after just chit chatting with them. It's funny, especially like when I would clean the inside of these my clients' windows, they'd always want to talk about this or that, or they say, "Oh, well, my granddaughter."
Yeah, they probably tell you all kinds of stuff. Huh? You're like,
yeah.
Oh, geez.
And those clients that I was able to like cultivate those relationships and go deeper with them, those clients stayed with me the longest. And it's really like not just about how many relationships you have, but like how like the depth of them too. Because you can have a lot of people that you kind of know, and I don't think you'll get anywhere with that. But if you only have a close circle of people that you are tight with and you refer business to and you hang out with and learn from, you'll go way further with like just 5 good people.
That's how I more of was only investing in people I knew already. And obviously like you got to meet people to know people, but like people that were around me pretty regularly. That was all I was really invested in and would talk to, and just wouldn't go out of my way to connect with new people. And it really I didn't really see much of a purpose to it because like I didn't have a business at that point, and I didn't have, at least I didn't see a reason. Although you can look at that and say, okay, well, if you're going to school and you're actively like making connections with all these people, when you graduate, you're going to have a huge network of people that might know, a job, a place you can get employed at, and would give you a good recommendation and all that.
Yeah, I think, Skylar, you said in one of the other episodes, the more hands you shake, the more money you make, or something, right? Yep. I finally learned that concept, and it's funny. Like I'll go to things or do things. Let me give you an example. My father-in-law was going to buy a 4-wheeler over in Bear Lake. We live close to there, and I was like, "I'll go with you." And he's like, "Okay." And so then when we were driving home, I ended up meeting a guy that knew some people that I wanted to meet to do more business, and I'm like, "Holy crap," And so I was just kind of talking to him about it. And I was like, yeah, more hands you shake, the more money you make. And he's like, well, I know a lot of people and I ain't collecting much money from them, I'm like, well, you got to set yourself up for it. But just building a relationship, and, a lot of people on social media, big name brand people, they're like, hey, part of the game is getting yourself known, but then also getting to know other people too. And I'm like, yeah, I want to build a huge personal brand, but my circle of people, like I want it to be pretty small. Like I want to have some really good people there,
Mm-hmm. Are there any relationships that you guys have cut out in your life, or maybe just fade away or not put as much effort into because they weren't healthy, or they were, negative, or just brought you down? And if so, why?
Well, I don't really think I don't think I ever had to make a conscious decision to not be around somebody anymore. Because in the first place, I only ever really hung out with people who were doing similar things to me, and I felt like I was like learning from them or being challenged by being by them, or like something, along those lines. And I didn't ever really expand. And so when I finally started to expand and meet people and cultivate relationships, it was with a purpose, and it was with people that, like, I wouldn't just take anybody and cultivate a relationship with them. It was like you get to know them, and then like if you were like, I don't know about this person, like, it's more of a if you're more intentional, I feel like that doesn't necessarily happen as much.
Yeah,
I
agree.
But it's been way interesting as I've been building my business and podcasts and posting on social media a lot. There's been a ton of negativity. So I've actually had to limit a lot of family. Like I haven't cut them off completely, but it's very limited. And like I didn't even go to some family reunions this summer just because I was like, I just don't even want to be around it. So haven't like officially, but like you're out, done, gone, but yeah, I purposely don't go to things or call them or, hang out with them a lot just because of the toxic relationship side of stuff,
But that doesn't affect you, does it?
Yeah, I wish it didn't.
Yeah. So talk about that a little more. Is like, because you don't want to be around these people because they're negative, but like really, like, how does that actually affect you, your bank account, your other relationships, your mental health? Like, how does?
And it's also even harder because a lot of the people that you have to do that with are family.
Yeah. So
a lot of people that
I got a perfect example. Thanksgiving, family, things are, went out there, Thanksgiving to my parents, my mom's place. And during that, so it was open enrollment for me in my business for Medicare and health insurance. And I was having the biggest year I've ever had by like triple, like just crushing it every day. I was in such a good flow state. It literally felt like every conversation I had was turning to gold. It was just wild. And I was nervous for the holidays because I'm like, it's like, we're going to take a couple days off. It's going to throw me out. But I was like, I got to protect this. I got to stay in it. And it literally, like at Thanksgiving, I got feeling guilty for the success I was having. I felt ashamed for how much my business was growing because of the conversations that was happening. And I'm like, well, crap, this, and this. Well, we're not experiencing that because we've grown outside of that. So it was like really hard. And I'm like, why am I feeling ashamed for the success that I'm having, the hard work that I'm putting in, the team that I've invested into, all this good that I've invested time, money, effort, energy into? Why am I feeling ashamed about that? But I did. And, come back home and went back to work and finished open enrollment. And it took me like 2 days to get back into it, back into feeling abundant in flow state and that. And I'm like, what the crap, And so through journaling, I was able to uncover why I was feeling that way. And I was able to reverse it through journaling and, some of the things that I've learned through some of the programs that I've gone to. And I was like, man, that's freaking hard because it's family. I love them. I'll never cut them out. I'll never, any of those things. But like, how do I navigate this? Because I've got to protect that because, I feel very strongly that God's put us all on this earth for a purpose. And it's my duty. It is my duty to accomplish that. And if I don't accomplish that, I failed God. I failed my purpose here on this earth. And so I look at that very strongly. So it's like, okay, I see these relationships, but then I also see this duty that I feel. And, part of me, the duty, I'm like, I'm done, I'm out. But I'm like, well, freak, that's, family's also a part of God's purpose. So it's like, how does this all work, right? So it is definitely a hard thing to navigate. So I've had to learn how to set boundaries. Through the summer, I actually had to set a pretty hard boundary with my family. And I could have handled it better. We all live and learn and stuff, right? But setting those boundaries has been very important to me of like, this is where I stand. This is where I'm at. Like either you support me or don't. And if you don't, like that's fine, but just know our time's going to be limited. So yeah, it was a really hard situation. And I actually took a new agent on my team out with me right after Thanksgiving. And she was just like, wow, I'm glad to see every day isn't like perfect for you. I'm like, actually it freaking sucks. Cause like I got thrown way off, So I just had to learn how to navigate that. So it's been a challenging thing. And honestly, there's a lot of people that don't pursue their goals and their dreams and create the relationships they could because of the ones that are holding them back. I've really found that out.
Mm-hmm. What's that saying? Your life's the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's so true. So like my answer to that question is, I used to be hanging out with a lot of these guys that I love to death. They're great, but a lot of them weren't really doing too much with their lives. And if you guys are listening, like I love you, but
that's the hard thing.
Yeah, it's hard because when there's so much complaining and I can't do this or I don't want to do that or well, I think maybe I'll start a business one day, but I'll just want to play video games,
Yeah, a bunch of passivity.
Yeah, it's a very sticky mindset and a way of being, and I just kind of found myself not really moving as fast and like not being able to progress my life forward in my goals and where I want to go as fast as I could, being around either by myself or with people that are growing a business and are trying to create a personal brand in like these different things. And I've had a lot more movement since I never cut them off, never would.
Yeah.
If they called me and needed my help for something, like 100%, I'm answering. I'll do anything for you guys.
Be there in a heartbeat.
But like, I can only stay around you and help certain people to a point. And I'm sure there's people that would say this about me, at certain points in my life. Like, I was probably the person that was maybe kind of like let go a little bit. But yeah, there's only just so long before it's more hurting my goals. And yeah, so I guess I would invite anybody listening, look at who you spend the most time with. Are they moving forward? Are they not? Are they unhealthy? Are they not? Do they have good relationship with their their kids, with their wives, with their girlfriends, boyfriends, family members. Like whatever you see is what you're going to expect. And so be around the people that are going to push you to that next level and make you want to be a better person.
And mic drop.
Mic drop.
And don't be, the hardest thing is don't be afraid to face those conversations. My wife and I actually just had a recent conversation, very recent, about kind of these same things. Like, hey, like we both need to step it up. You know, it was a really hard freaking conversation to have, but through it, my wife realized areas she can get better. I realized areas I can get better, how we can work together. You know, because we've got big goals and dreams. And I'm like, I can't do it by myself. You can't do it by yourself. Like we're in this together 100%. And those conversations are really hard, but that the relationship is more important than the hard conversation. And I had to learn that, like even with some of my family members, to set boundaries and stuff. And I'm like, this has gone on too long. I've allowed it to go on too long. I've allowed it for me to be kind of pushed and bullied around with it and manipulated in a way. And I'm like, this can't happen because it's only negative on all aspects. So by us thinking of not saying something that we're helping them, we're actually not, because we're not going to have a good relationship if there is something in between us and we never bring it up. My brother and I actually, we've had a lot of really hard conversations, but we're able to kind of tell each other where the bear craps in the woods and then talk through it. And like I value that. I value the like, dude, this is how I feel. And okay, I see your side of it. I apologize. We both can better move on, right? It's so much more important to have that conversation, set those boundaries. And if it goes the wrong way, and you know, well, sorry, you know, you're choosing to react that way. It's easier said than done, though. That's the thing. And this is a thing that I've had to really learn and work on, and I'm still learning and working on it. But it's so important, because if you go hang out with these people and it sets you back, what the freak are you doing? You know?
Yeah. I think who you surround yourself with, and I think you can tell pretty easily how you feel after being around certain people.
Oh man.
So like I really don't put energy into relationships that I don't feel some sort of positive effect after. And if there's people that I just don't like being around, I just don't pursue it at all. And I mean, that's really all I've done. It's like, I mean, like I said, I didn't really care about meeting new people. I also didn't really, when I was younger, didn't necessarily care about being around the people that I knew. Because like, I wasn't one of those people that go hang out with big groups of people and go to all the parties and stuff. It's like, I didn't really see any value in that.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'd rather have a close relationship with a couple people that like we're all working towards similar things, and it's a productive relationship and not like a energy draining thing.
You just sparked a memory of, like, again, book, podcast. I don't know where the heck I heard it.
Somewhere.
You guys know the company Oracle?
Yeah, I think so.
What's the guy's name that owns Oracle? That white-haired guy, whatever.
I don't remember.
Okay, you guys, whoever he is. I actually heard something that the staff, the team members he had that took Oracle to 250 million or something, when they hit 250 million, he fired the whole staff.
Yeah, because it's not the same people that's going to take him to
he's
500 or whatever.
Yeah, he's like, the people that took me to 250 aren't the people that are going to take me to $1 billion. And so I shared this with my office lady, and she's like, BS, you ain't firing me, you know? I was like, I didn't share it for that reason. But I thought that was very interesting. The people that were going to take him to a couple $100 million weren't the people that was going to take him to $1 billion. This is a pretty successful guy.
Yeah.
And like, that was a pretty solid boundary set right there. Like, interesting, right? Like, that's a whole conversation.
It's interesting because if you look at people like Sean Whalen, who we all know, like he's kind of gone through similar things where in his company, and like I see a similar trend in companies where they're like, you know what, we have to make major changes because the people that got us to this point aren't going to get us farther.
Because they're stuck in that frame of mind.
But I also think if you're investing in a team properly, that they should grow, should be able to grow with the company.
And that's what I told my staff. I was like, guys, I'm not going to fire you when we get to $1 million, you know, but there is an expectation we got to get better.
Yeah.
And if we're not getting better, there's going to be no place for you in the company,
and
or my relationship or anything.
This
right?
comes to managing employees. Like you could make a circle to, if you have an employee working for you and you are growing as a company and this employee is stagnant, I mean, at some point it should be time for you to just cut it with them, because they're not gaining anything from it. You're not gaining anything from it. They're just showing up to collect a check, and they're not interested in growing the company. So
if you're not getting better, you're getting worse.
Yeah.
It's like if you don't work out, you're going to get weaker. If water's stagnant, it's going to get dirtier. It's the same with, people. If they're not constantly getting better, then or at least involved in self-development in some way, they're probably just going to start, make excuse here or there. They start to get maybe overweight. They're fine, just like these slow things that happen, and then it's almost happens so slow that we don't recognize it.
Start showing up late to work and not caring as much and making little mistakes here and there, and whatever it is. It's not that big a deal. I've been here long enough.
Yeah. Right. I got a question. So, Skylar, you've been doing your Utah Hustlers podcast. When did it officially launch? Like,
I think it was October 1st, I believe.
23?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, in that time, you've interviewed quite a few people.
Yeah.
And they weren't all people you knew or friends right in the moment, right?
I think
like you've built a lot of new relationships through it.
Yeah, almost every single person I had not met until they showed up to do the interview. Most of them.
That's a pretty incredible task. And Jaden, you've pretty much done the same thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe even to a bigger scale, Jaden's.
Yeah. Yeah, both of you. This is a good question for both of you. I've only had one person on my podcast. This is going to be cool, and this is a big goal of mine in 2024. How have you gone about that to position yourself as, someone, because in the last episode, none of us are multimillionaires or, big followings and big statuses or anything, but you both have had some pretty great episodes, cool people on the show, successful people on the show, really cool things. How have you positioned yourself in a way to build a relationship, in a way to do a show to add value to other people? Skylar, let's start with you.
I think the first thing is you got to be someone who's worth knowing, right? So you kind of got to do a little self-evaluation on yourself. Is like, okay, what am I doing right now with my life? How am I perceived by other people? And am I someone that other people want to get to know? Like if I didn't know me and I saw myself on social media, first off, would I want to say, hey, what's this? I want to know more about this guy. I want to know what he's doing, what he's about, and I want to collaborate with him. So I think that's the first thing, is being someone worth knowing in your appearance, the way you talk, the way you treat people, the value you give. And I think that's just the very first thing, is be positive and, treat people the way you want to be treated. The golden rule. I think that's
so how, one. When you reach out to these people, are you calling them, texting them, sending them a message on a social media, a video? How have you gotten these people on your shows?
Yeah, usually I will just reach out to them, like on Instagram. That's a lot of it.
Is it a text message type or a video message?
Text message.
Okay.
And it's gotten easy. It's been easier to get people on the show as the show's grown, because then I can say, hey, want to come on my podcast? And they check me out, and then they go into like the Utah Hustlers page and like, oh, okay, wow, look at all these people. Whoa, I know that person. They were on it. I want to be on it. So there is a reputation that kind of needs to be built out. But once you build that, then I think people are a lot more excited to be on. I had the first woman come on, and I interviewed her. The episode has not released yet. Maybe it has by the time this comes out. Actually, it will. Yeah. Anyway, Taylor Proctor, she's the first one that came on, and she saw it before I ever reached out and was like, I'm going to be the first woman on Utah Hustlers.
No way.
And then I reached out to her like 3 days later.
Power of manifesting.
Yeah. And so, I think, I just reach out to them and, hey, when are you available? I usually record at these times, and I record in South Jordan, and we make it work. But I always decide on a topic too.
I usually send them a topic.
I give them a list of like 10, 15 topics of, hey, these are things that I know my listeners need to go. We need to go in depth with. What's one or two that you feel like you're an expert on that we could go deep into for an hour or so?
That's cool. And then they get this message like, who's this chump?
Yeah. Usually it's like, hey, I like what you're doing. I may need to have you on the podcast. Like, I'll literally say that, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I'd love to. That'd be so cool. And then we go into details and, 2 or 3 messages down. Once the time's booked, then I send them the topic.
Okay.
So I do that because I just want to get it on the books. And once we know it's happening this day, then everything else has a little more urgency to it. Like we got to pick a topic and we got to, figure out whatever XYZ details need to be figured out.
That's cool. Way cool. Jaden, what about you?
Yeah. So becoming someone that is known is a big one. Like setting yourself apart, doing something that's or showing that you are pursuing, a better version of yourself. And when I reach out to people, it was always like, hey man, I've got this podcast. We talk about blue collar work and the future of blue collar, whatever, like whatever I decide to add into that. And I personalize them most of the time to the person, and we'll be like, would you be interested in coming on? And usually they'll, like, sometimes they've been a little bit, especially when I first started, they were a little standoffish, like, I don't know. And most of the time I'm like, I'm just barely starting this out. I'd love to have you on. If not, if you'd like to revisit it later, or like whatever, like just show that I'm interested in having them on and be interested in cultivating a relationship. And it depends on the person, because a lot of times I'll even cultivate a relationship first, because a lot of people don't like to see a random message from a person. I know I don't, just reaching out to him, because most of the time, I get like at least one message a day about Forex crypto traders or like some random things that just end up in my message requests. And Instagram is really cracking down on it. And you made a joke about me liking Instagram earlier. If that was off camera or not, I don't remember. But that's what I use.
Yeah.
And I've used LinkedIn a little bit, but it's like I'll just come across people and I'll be like, I'd like to have them on. And I just send them a message. And it was hard at first. It's like I would go through and type a message and I'm like, I don't know if I want to say that. Like, it's kind of awkward. Like, but you get over that. And then as soon as they say yes or no, I'm like, here's a link to my Calendly. Pick a time that works for you. Super excited to have you on. And, if they're standoffish or not, like that's all changed over time, where now I'm having people reach out to me. And recently, by the time this has come out, I think this person will be on the owner or founder of Boom Nation, which is I think they help people find jobs in blue collar work. I think I'd have to look at that. They have like 300,000 followers on Instagram, and they reached out to me. They followed me and reached out to me on my podcast to get their owner on. And I was like,
dang,
I was like, wow. And so did another person. I've had a couple people reach out and schedule to come on my podcast through email. So like you get to a point where you start building like this list of people that you've had on, and then people start to notice. So at first it was a little weird to get people on, because they don't know me, I don't know them, like, but you kind of pick and choose who you have on. And I had a lot of people I'm close with on first, get a few episodes going, and then start reaching out to people I don't know, and then like cultivating those relationships from there. And then if it's somebody I really want to have on that I'm not sure they're even going to see the message, like I just follow them and kind of like start interacting with their posts and like actually show an interest, because I am interested in them. And that's another one, is showing a genuine interest in these people. So
that's cool.
Yep.
That's way cool. I think that's very valuable for the show. That's why I asked that question. But I actually, there's a couple here in Utah that I was like, they just always come up on my For You page on TikTok. And they're local here, and they're building personal brand and investing in real estate and doing some stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And I've been wanting to invite them for a while. And like I watch their stuff and like stuff, and I don't really comment and stuff, because it's like if it's just like a dancing one, or I'm like, what am I going to comment? So I'm like, okay, how do I engage with these guys? Well, one day I was like, you know what? Quit being scared of it. And I sent him a message on TikTok. I was like, hey, I have a podcast. Would love to have you guys on. Love everything you guys are doing, the value you're adding. Like, it's just super cool. I'd love to have you guys on. And they've seen it. You know how it shows that you've seen it, and no response. And I'm like, man, what?
And that happens.
Yeah.
And I will send messages, and it'll be in message requests and never opened. And I bet there's probably 10 messages I've sent to people that they haven't even seen it.
Yeah.
And most people don't straight up ignore it. But sometimes people do, and
Well, and they're probably just like, freak, what?
Yeah,
what?
don't know.
They've probably never been on a podcast or,
Well,
so
and
maybe, I don't, I'm like,
some people are like that, and
I can't look at it as a negative against me because who knows what's going on in the background. So
But
that's
it
why I
does.
share that is,
but
you
it
know?
does. Like if that happens, and you're like, oh man, like,
oh man,
like they just ignored it. Like what the
I'm like,
heck?
I'm a freaking nobody, you know? Like,
Yeah. So that's one thing you just gotta do it.
Just
you know?
continue.
Like people
Well,
like in the dating scene, it's always, shoot your shot. Like, really, like we talked about it being intentional on social media. I focused so much on posting my own stuff. I hardly ever interacted with anybody. At all. And when I started interacting, commenting, liking, sharing other people's stuff, like all of a sudden, like all of this attention and these messages and stuff was coming to me about my stuff, about me. And it's like, people like human, like connection. It's something we like as humans. It's something we're really built to enjoy. And people like to see you interacting with their stuff and just like to feel like you appreciate them. So cultivating it that way is,
it's cool.
even if you comment on one of their videos and just put some emojis or something, like a lot of people like to see.
Well, I was just curious. And so I'm like, maybe I should have engaged more. So I actually clicked on the very first post and started scrolling. And there was actually a lot of them that I had liked. And I was like, okay, education, right? Like it's all education stuff. And maybe they're just completely not into that thing or freaked out about it. Like whatever it is, what it is. But to piggyback off of that, this is actually like a really cool thing for me because like I've posted over 1,000 times on Instagram and 800 and something followers, like not a ton of followers or something, So over the years, like doing my business and stuff, everybody's like, post and, be a part of and and it'll like turn into something. Well, I've always wanted to be on podcasts and speak and things like that. It wasn't until 2023, I was invited to be on another guy's podcast. It was through Zoom. So we did that. And then Skylar, you reached out and I was on your show. And then it was actually over Thanksgiving weekend. You like, hey, we should do a collaboration, us three. So then that's happened. And then I was asked to speak at an event on the 29th of January. And I'm like, holy crap. So many people give up way too early. Like building relationships and adding value and creating posts and content and sharing your stories and things. Like it's a scary thing to do. But my whole inspiration, motivation behind the whole thing is like, I want to add value to the people of the world and show people what's possible and help them achieve that. So that was my focus. I'm like, you know what? I'm getting hardly any comments, any likes, any engagement, but I'm going to continue to do it. And now, things have started to come up and I'm like, this is freaking cool.
Well,
right?
the stage I spoke on was Jake Dancy's, and I had him on my podcast, and I had connected with him and stuff through the Lions Den. So it's like opportunities come your way, especially if you give other people opportunities and you interact and comment and like, and I mean, that's Instagram likes to see that. They like the algorithm likes to see that you're interacting with other people. And other people interacting with you. And, people like to see that.
And don't be afraid to ask. So kind of a cool thing this week, I'm like, okay, my lady that's been managing my books for my company, I was like, hey, I need to set up W-2. We need to get fully set up. And she's like, I could learn it, but like, I really don't do that. And I got 3 young kids at home and I'm kind of stepping back and I'm like, okay, so you're okay if I find somebody else? She's like, yeah, I'm sorry. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I'll create a video on social media, post it. And I guarantee I've got tons of friends. They'll be like, oh, da-da-da-da-da. I literally did it. And I had like 6, 7, 8 people reach out and found the perfect person and hired her. I'm like, so don't be afraid to ask either. Like, hey, this is what I need. I need help. People on social, like people love to help people. I think that's a huge relationship thing, right? People love to help people.
And that's at first, especially when you're inviting people on your podcast at first, they're coming on either because you know them or they're like, they want to help. They want to help you grow your brand and maybe they're bought into your topic and whatever it is. But that's usually what it turns into. And then you do get to a point where people want to use your stuff for them. But like, honestly, if you get to that point, then obviously it means you're doing something because people are noticing and they want to take advantage of that too.
Can I be on your show?
Yeah. or, you know, you should have this person on your show. And
Yeah.
I get sick of people saying that, honestly. You should have X and X person on your show. And I'm like, they have nothing to do with me.
Yeah. Relationships are so important in all of those aspects.
Yeah.
Well, and I like that we're talking about podcasting because podcasting is honestly one of the best ways to build a relationship with someone you've never met before.
Yep. That is the reason why I started mine.
Yeah. So when it comes to networking or just meeting new people, business partners, or it could be any type of person you want to meet with. Like a lot of times you can even sit down with these people that otherwise they wouldn't probably have lunch with you. They probably wouldn't sit down with you because
Give
they're
you
too
the time of day for nothing.
They're too busy, but there's this value exchange when it's a podcast because you're creating content and getting them in front of more people. So if you want to network with people and build more relationships, like start a podcast. It really is not all that hard. As long as you know what to do, right? It's hard. It's harder when you don't know
That's what
to do.
Skylar's here for.
Exactly. Right. I'm marketing myself right now.
Well, it's true. You know,
yeah.
the podcast is the easiest way for you to get in front of people and the easiest way for you to add value to people,
And it's like
to other people.
And it's a setting where it's not weird to ask them any question you want.
Yeah.
Like you can get so deep with them and you can really have quickly create a strong relationship fast on a podcast where any other situation, I don't think you could. It'd almost be weird to be at a party and be like, all right, so how'd you start your business? Yeah. Oh, well, what about this? Tell me about your childhood. To be like, what the crap? Like, I've spent 20 minutes with you. I didn't want to go talk to this person, but it's like a dedicated hour just to getting to know that person.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Skylar, what's your credit card number?
What?
Oh, not any question then. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
No, that's so true. And that's like, I'm learning a ton from you guys. I've got 136 episodes or something, and I've had one person on, So it's been
hard.
a lot of growth for me.
I don't think I would have been able to do that.
Yeah, it's been a lot of growth for me. Actually, honestly, that's not for everybody, but it's taught me so many lessons. Like, what am I going to talk about? What's important to me? It's been really good for me. But now I'm like, okay, I've done a lot of growing. I'm ready to go to the next step of having people on and growing in a different way. Like, I've gained a lot of clarity through it, Yep. So I'm like, that was a very expensive lesson for me, right? But if I wouldn't have done it, I would never be where I am today.
Yeah.
So never be afraid to just go for it and build relationship in any way that you want. Do I have a lot of listeners? I don't know. I don't look at the numbers.
Yeah.
I have no clue. I have no clue how many downloads, nothing. Yeah. Like, I never look at the numbers. My focus is people will listen if there's a lot of value. And until I'm creating a lot of value, I'm not going to get a lot of listens.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of truth to that. And a lot of people get started into something like this and they quit too soon because they're too focused on that.
yeah.
Like growing an Instagram, oh man, I'm not getting any video views. Like,
It's frustrating.
instead of reevaluating and making new content or like just pivoting or just keeping going, it's like they just stop because they don't see success within, however long
time. Yeah.
however long. And it's the same with the podcast. Like, if you focus too much on the listeners, especially early on, because really in a podcast setting, you're taking 40 minutes probably on average of someone's time. And if they're not bought into that, like, you're probably not going to get very many listens for a while.
Well, if I come to you guys and all I was trying to do is get, like, friendship's gone.
Yeah.
You're going to get burnt, right? Like, there's got to be a connection and a relationship and a conversation value add in every area.
Yeah. The podcast is the best way to add value to someone else. Like, that you don't even know.
There's nothing better than when somebody,
like, you add value to your guest, like a ton of value to your guest and people that are listening.
Yeah.
Like, it's,
there's nothing better than when somebody sends you, like, if it's a friend, a text, or somebody else,
Yeah.
social media or something, said, hey, the last episode, like, I needed that. And you're like, yes, I feel like a dummy making it. So I'm glad like, sometimes I'm like, crap, what am I doing? Or, so like that's a super cool reward to get is, wow, somebody else got a lot of value from that. I love that.
intentional.
Yeah.
Be intentional.
Yeah.
I think that's my theme a lot of the time nowadays. It's like intentional. So too many people are unintentional with everything they do. Like, they just get up out of bed and just kind of wander about their morning,
Go through the motions and
wander to work. Like they wander through their relationships. But like, imagine if you're being intentional with everything, and being intentional with what you do in the morning before you go to work, and being intentional with getting ready to go to work, and being intentional with relationships you're building with clients, with your body, like whatever it is. Imagine if there's some sort of intention there instead of just like going throughout the day and then going home and sit on the couch.
So what are some good ways to set intentions for build? I mean, we're talking about relationships with this one. So let's say relationships.
With relationships. Well, honestly, we talk about this adding value. I think thinking about how you can add value to people and then just doing it is probably one of the best ways. Like it's different if you're talking about relationships with people you have / or know and people that you don't know. Like if you're super intentional about, okay, I can do this for this person. I don't know them, but I want to. You just do that. Like, for example, you want to have them on the podcast, invite them on the podcast, say, this is what you can do, this or what I can do for you. Would you be interested? That's a value add immediately where they're like, oh, wow, I'm going to get something out of this. And they're going to get something out of it. And it's like, there's a value on both sides. And that's what a relationship is at the end of the day. If one person's giving all the value and the other person isn't doing anything, then that's not much of a relationship. So being intentional with what value you add with, that could go for your spouse, being intentional for what you do for them, being intentional with how you go about your day thinking about them, or
I like that. So just, what's another word for intentional? Because I don't know if that would resonate with a lot. Like, I think like I get it, but like just adding value to someone, like how can you make someone else's life better? Would that mean the same
like
thing?
really, what can you do for them? Like purpose, like honestly, it comes down to where do you want to be? What kind of person do you want to be?
What kind of person do you want to be known as? You know, are you a taker or are you a giver?
Yeah. And it's something we're all working on, and me especially. And like I get going through the motions as well, and especially with relationships. And, in my mind, I'm not thinking about taking advantage of my spouse, but at the end of the day, that's a lot of times what it comes across as. And I'm not, maybe not intentional about being appreciative for what she does, or like about the time I spend, or like that's one thing with the social media is like I started putting my phone away because it's like this thing is taking up all my time and I'm not being intentional at all with it.
I like that. There's a book I'm reading right now on relationships that it's like about building a personal brand, but that's all about building relationships. It just come to my mind with stuff you were saying, Jaden, that I really want to recommend to the listeners. It's called Be Seen, Beseen. Have you guys read it? Heard about it or nothing? She was on, her name's Jen. I don't know how to say the last name. It's something G something. She was on Ed Milet's podcast. Incredible episode. Really, really good. Like I liked it so much. I shared it with my wife, and then she bought me the book for Christmas, and it's super good. So very good. And there's some really good things about building relationships. It's kind of a sour thing now because like I've learned this and I'm like, oh, I'm going to implement this. And so now like I go hang out with people and they're not skillful in these things. Yeah. And I'm always like, oh, I can't even freaking hang out with them anymore because they don't like, all they want to do is talk about themselves and, and I'm like, oh my gosh, so it's a really good book about building relationships in adding value and being intentional in what you're doing. So, it's a really, really good, really good read.
You could add to that just being curious about people.
Oh yeah. Questions.
Being curious in general and wanting to learn about them. And it's like, that's something I'm working on. I find myself talking, I don't even like talking about myself, and I find myself talking about myself.
Everybody
too much.
Loves to talk about themselves.
I don't like it very much. I have a hard time with the solo episodes I do. It's like,
really?
Yeah, I just have a hard time because it's like I don't have anybody to ask questions to or get feedback from or like to talk to. So it's like I have a hard time. And so that was probably one of the hardest things for me on the podcast. But I still, even in conversation, find myself talking too much about me and not asking enough questions. So that's one thing too, being intentionally curious about specific details and about, what this person did or like why they think that way.
So I've been like through this book, I've been learning about stuff, right? And my wife and I were in Hawaii a couple weeks ago at a luau, and there was this guy that I knew a little bit, but never met his wife. So I'm learning these things in this book, right? And I'm like, I'm gonna try it here. I asked them question after question after question after question for like 2 hours. Mm-hmm. They talked the whole time. They barely knew where my wife and I lived. And I was like, that was freaking awesome. Like we knew all their kids, what they were doing. He's way into growing roses and flowers, like what she's into, like their business. They gave us incredible, they're quite a bit older than my wife and I. They gave us incredible advice about, you know, children and raising a family and you know, all these things. And we like left and my wife's like, how was the luau? I was like, I didn't even pay attention to the freaking luau. Like I had no clue what was going on in the luau. I was doing this. And it was the coolest thing to like, I'm not going to focus on myself at all. I'm going to ask them questions, you know? And like, he's texted me a couple times after just to see how we're doing and stuff. And I'm like, wow, interesting how there was a really cool connection made. And yet we didn't say a freaking word hardly.
Take that to the podcast level where you're interviewing somebody and talking to somebody. Ed Milet's
a master at it, you know? And so that's, you know, so I was like, I'm going to try this. And it was a really cool experiment for me. I was like, hey, I want to get even better at this. Yeah. It's way cool. But like it's a great tactic of building relationships and value. There's a lot of value. I learned a lot, like a ton about just all kinds of stuff. It was really cool.
That's cool. Awesome.
Luau's are cool, I guess. You know, we got some food.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing with things like that. I don't even look at events as like I'm going to the event. It's like I'm going to meet people.
Yeah,
I mean, even at the Lion's Den event, I went and met you there, and I didn't do that as much that year, but so that was cool to see the next year, this last Lion's Den event, Lion's Den Live. I did that with quite a few people, but I had so many people coming up to me being like, hey man, like I see you on Instagram.
Yeah.
Listen to your podcast. And I'm like, this is weird. Like, but it's because I've been putting myself out there.
I need a Sharpie so I can start signing, like, you know.
Yeah. It was weird. It was like I didn't even expect
Can I take a picture with you?
Yeah. And it was just cool to see because the support is there. And if you're out there adding value, people will listen and people will appreciate it and they'll want to meet you and build that relationship.
Yeah. So true.
Yep.
Love it. We're about out of time. Any last thoughts, words, advice on building relationships?
Time's infinite. We can keep going.
Yeah, just honestly, just go out of your way to be curious about people. You know, that's I think about that because I sometimes have a hard time with it, you know, and I am curious about a lot of things, but it's hard in the moment to be curious about like everything about this person and being invested. So that's just on my mind quite a bit.
Something that just popped in my head that I learned a while ago is if you don't know what to ask someone about, there's this little thing. So just think of like a Ford truck. So it's F is for see, now I can't even remember. Family. That's what it is. So family, occupation, recreational, and dreams. So first ask them about their family. Are they married? Do they have kids? What's their family like growing up? Occupation. So what do they do for work? Is that where they're going to end up or like want to end? And like, you know, everything around there. R is recreational. So their hobbies, what they like to do for fun, all that stuff. And then D, dreams. So what do they wish they had? What are they working towards? So just
I've never heard that.
Yeah. So if you just go down those four, like usually always have another question to ask them. So if you're ever building that relationship and wanting to talk more about them, like you were saying, Jared, just think of Ford: family, occupation, recreational, and dreams.
That's cool.
I've never heard of that, and I may just have to change it to like GMC or something.
Yeah, just come up with your own. I've heard other ways that people like do it. Yeah, you can come up with your own. Because Ford, but Ford's just easy for me to remember.
Yeah, that is easy.
Yeah. Plus, I've had a couple Mustangs and
there
you go. In the past.
There you go.
Like Ford.
Nice. So one thing I would add, like building relationships. All of you guys listening, listen to Utah Hustlers and the Blue Collar Future, because I learn a ton from Jaden and Skylar on their social media platforms and the podcast. I mean, you guys are listening to this on their podcast. So go listen to all their episodes. Follow them on social media, because this is something I'm really wanting to gain a lot of skill in. I want to be really good at interviewing and relationships and those things. Like it's a kind of an obsession of mine right now. And I learn a lot from these two. And so this was really fun for me. And those couple questions I was able to ask, just because relationships, in my opinion, is the most important part of everything, of business, finance, money, everything we've talked about. Relationship is the most important, in my opinion, me personally. And so a lot of value right here.
Yep. Amen.
Love it. Oh, and listen to Real You.
Yeah. Really.
You left yours out.
Yeah, but you guys got the interview stuff going and down. And it's good. It's way
I don't
good.
know about that. I'm still working on the interview thing.
Hey, we get better, right?
good, yeah.
We all
Oh, yeah.
get better, but it's for where you guys are at and for how many episodes you have, it is good.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate that.
Well, thanks everyone for listening. This is the last one of this 4-part series with the Blue Collar Future podcast and the Real You podcast and the Utah Hustlers.
And the Utah Hustlers.
Yes.
Hey, can I put this out there? We are going to be having a conversation about an event we are going to do together, us three. So stay tuned and tune into our social media platforms, because we're going to be posting about it. The venue where we're doing it, it's a good size, but it is not massive. So there may be a limited number of seats depending on how much excitement we get about it. So I'm way excited about that.
Well, shoot me. That might even be announced before this comes out. You never know.
Yeah,
Probably. Well,
we could always end. We can do this one first.
Yeah. Yeah. So make sure, because it's going to be good. We're going to do some speaking, have some speakers, and then lots of networking and masterminding and stuff. So,
that's one thing I guess I can add here is being open to opportunity. Like Jake Danzy, when I'm cultivating that relationship with him and I had him on my podcast and stuff, he asked me if I wanted to speak. And I'm like, I was going through a thing where I was like, you know what, I'm just going to say yes to everything. And the speaking deal, like I said yes, and I was excited for a while. And then it came up close to it, and I'm like, oh, shoot. Like I don't even know what I'm going to do here. Like, I don't even know why I'm getting on the stage. Like, because that type of stuff happens. And that happens throughout building the relationship process. It's like you reach out to someone you want to have a relationship with, and it's like, man, who am I even to reach out to these people, especially if there's someone you really want to have a relationship with. It's like, it can be a little bit daunting, but it
is.
You just got to jump on it.
Yeah.
So
You never know until you try.
it's true.
Yep.
Right
Well,
on. Okay. Well, thanks for listening. We'll see you guys on the next one. On the flippity flop. That almost came out. That was good. We did it. I feel like
that's a marathon right there. Never done that.
that's the longest I've recorded before. I think if I was with a bunch of people I hadn't met, I would have been very burnt out a while back. But it being you guys, I felt like I could do that again.